So I got contacted by our EL department. We have our first Afghan students starting in the district, and they happen to be at the school, one of the schools that my office is located at. And so I recalled on AAC for the SLP, seeing some different resources out there. Beth Poss had a lesson picks board that she translated. And we do have access to lesson picks this year. So we're getting all of our teachers started with that for some picture supports. They've asked for AAC tools just to help because they have no English whatsoever. And I think they're thinking, just some picture support to help with even some basic communication, such as asking to go to the bathroom, getting on the bus, those types of things. I was told in a meeting this morning, we have 4 students. We have another family of 10 that will be coming into the district shortly, and we're going to keep them at just a couple different schools. We at this point don't have a consistent translator available to us. Although that will hopefully be changing. And what else can I tell you? Of the 4 students in the district, we have 2 at elementary, 2 at middle school, and only the 8th grade student has some reading skills. So even though we're looking at translation, like lesson picks, and is able to translate into the language Pashto. Dari, I guess, is the other sort of dialect I think that these students use. So it's either Dari or Pashto. But they're not reading, so yes, we can have that label like on lesson picks, but these students, that doesn't really help because they haven't had no formal education. It's just been sort of homeschooling through the mom, is my understanding. So if anybody has any other ideas for resources, Google Translate does translate Pashto. And so we looked into coughdrop. But again, there's no voice output. It just is the label, and these students aren't necessarily reading, so it kind of goes back to some of our learners when we're using AAC, you have to teach the symbol. Well, we need a translator to help us to teach the symbol, you know what I mean? Like some of that explanation that goes into it. So it was great timing for this meeting today. I'd love to hear all of your thoughts. I have another meeting coming up this afternoon. And none of these students are spec ed students that we know of, by the way.
I'm actually checking a couple apps to see if they have Pashto.
What were you thinking around coughdrop?
I was just trying to come up with ideas. They specifically asked me about Proloquo, of course, because that's what somebody had heard or knew about. And I said, nah. And I searched AAC for the SLP. There was some good conversation on there. Coughdrop was thrown out. I think avas was thrown out too. There's some Arabic, but nothing in that Afghan language. And it's tricky. Like I did some Googling to learn more about it. There's lots of different dialects and they don't always translate all that easily.
I'm trying to look and see, does it have the dialect you're looking for?
We were looking at Snap and Read and Co-Writer this morning, and they also translate to Pashto. But again, nothing has that voice output. And I know we had a meeting on here where we used Microsoft's translator, and we kind of played around with that and practiced that. But I have not, we've got it locked down here at school. So I have to play around with that on my home computer to see how that would work.
I have a school district in Texas that used genie.com for an instant translator. It wasn't Pashto, but, and I just went there to see what languages they can provide people for, but for that kind of instant translator, they were using that service.
Yeah, I did see Microsoft Translator does have Dari and does have Pashto. Like I said, I just can't do it on my computer here at school because we've got it all locked down.
Well, this is a live person.
Oh, it's a live person.
This is a live person that can be brought in to translate for meetings, and
we
they
do
were
have
using it in the classroom.
we do have a service like that that will do that, and we have a staff person that speaks Pashto and Dari here at school, but she's a Head Start employee, and so that funding is different. So I'm hoping they're going to be able to move her into that role and maybe find a few more translators. I think it just all happened so quickly and trying to track all that down. So I was just trying to think of some other AT tools, that might help. Staff are really liking lesson picks.
This is not exactly the simplest solution, but what if you use the Go Talk Now app and had one of the translators record the
Yep.
buttons for you?
Yep, we've thought about that. The other thing to mention is these students have never even seen a computer. So that's the other tricky part about it. Even, like all of our Chromebooks, you have to have a username and password. And so we're working to try and figure out some access methods so they don't even have to log in, either through facial recognition or something like that, QR codes, which we've done for other students in the past. But we're trying, they are leaning towards more iPad based stuff because it's a little bit easier to operate, just because they don't have any keyboarding, any experience whatsoever.
So I'm just going to follow up Lori's idea, because way back in the 80s, when when we had some of the recordable things like the regular Go Talks, not an app, we had a couple kids that spoke other languages, and we would just record both words on the same button.
So English and the native language.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
We did the native language first and then the English, because then that made like all of the teachers in the classroom were hearing that word consistently. Yep. And it was very basic. It wasn't for a child that was nonverbal. It was for translating some really basic things. And they had like on one, I gotta remember, on one level, we had the schedule of the day. On another level, it was like basic needs.
We got Go Talks up to wazoo. I could easily do some Go Talks.
Because you could just make one set of overlays for them and put them on all of them, and at least have something up and running really quickly.
And it's not technology per se, like that's really going to be a struggle for them to learn how to use. Yeah, I like that idea too.
Yeah, and if you could just get your translator to record it into like a recorded app, then you don't have to have that translator do 10 Go Talks. Mm-hmm. You would just record it off of the recording.
Oh, that's smart too, Kelly.
Only because I've lived it. Because as soon as we did it the first time, somebody wiped it out.
Yeah.
And so then we had to have this translator do it again. And we're like, okay, listen, we're going to do this more smart.
Or even just think like Zoom.
Product that you could record. There was like the Zygo products that were recorded. You could save that recording and import the whole thing, but that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, even just Zoom, even if I had a Zoom meeting with her and she said the words and then I, sat there and recorded it and sat there and played it over and over and recorded each one.
Well, and in Zoom, you've got your, the voice recording line that you can do where you just record the audio and then just keep that audio file and chop it up as you need it.
I like that.
I was thinking of the old language masters.
Yes,
doing
exactly.
The same thing.
Do you guys know what a language master is?
We still have some.
Yeah, so there's the cards and then there's a little recording strip. Jennifer, pull those out of the closet.
Yeah, those would be great.
I have a lot of those too.
They were my favorite thing to do in school when I was in early ed services.
Yeah.
And just
And
put
the
the
kids like
picture.
it because they can push it through, you know, it's like a physical action thing they can do. And they
And they
can
could-
do it as many times as they want to because it, you know.
It can be set up with a peer so that a peer is starting to learn their language.
There you go.
And then you can use the same visuals that you're placing around the room so that they're hearing it, seeing it there, and then they're seeing the application of it, like chair or whatever. When you're
God, we
doing
used to
the
have
math.
those cards taped up all around my classroom.
Right. You know, like the old preschool classroom.
Engineering the environment.
I'm wondering if you know any of the tools for people who are visually impaired would be helpful, and if they translate. I was thinking of like the tool where you take a picture and then it tells you what's in that picture. If
Oh,
they have
right.
that in languages.
Yeah, I don't know.
So it might be worth finding somebody who's doing vision.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they might
Anybody-
have one of those in the loan program, John.
Yeah.
I
Anybody know about Speech Assistant AAC on the Google Play Store? It will run on Chromebook. It came up when I put in Pashto. No, it doesn't say anything about languages, so in its drop down.
I know that when there was that My Talk app, and I don't even think that that exists anymore, people would do that with multiple languages.
I was kind of liking coughdrop if we were going to do any sort of high tech, just because we could
Yeah.
load it on Chromebooks, we could have it on iPads. I mean, it's fairly reasonable. We already have gone through and done all of the work to have it approved in our district for use. So, you know, and it does use Google Translate, just like but it doesn't have that voice output. I mean, I guess you could probably do some recorded speech with something like that too.
So yeah, I have a student that's used coughdrop and at one point was switching back and forth between like 4 languages, one of which was a recorded language that the sibling recorded the words for. But what's nice about it is you get the motor planning of it, no matter what language you're putting it in, because you're basically copying a page set and translating it all. They don't need words in both, they're there, but also have the visual support with. But I just in the sidebar on coughdrop have a link between the page sets, 3 page sets in the case, and they can easily switch between the English and French and the German and or what they needed. Was an Armenian that the link recorded.
I think I caught about 75% of that, Alyssa. You were kind of cutting in and out, but do you know when you record speech like that in coughdrop, does it save it to the device? Or like if you are using like the Chromebook version, could you log on to any Chromebook and would those recordings be available?
It follows the person, so I'm guessing it saves it in the cloud, because I had somebody using that iPad and they also had an Android device that they used on, so they had access to the recording both places. So I am assuming it lives on the cloud. It follows the.
I also think coughdrop's the kind of place that you.
So it's a
probably-
long-term.
It's the kind of place you could probably contact them and ask them if they could do something about getting their Pashto that has the speech component. Since you can translate a board into Pashto. So I know they're pretty.
Yeah, Scott, they're pretty responsive.
Yep.
Yeah, I've worked with them before.
Yeah, I would with that. Yeah, I mean, they helped me the first time, but I can also send you direction for how I translated our whole full board set into multiple. It's super quick and easy.
Yeah, I translated a few boards just to try it out and see how it worked. Like I said, I don't know if there's no voice synthesized like voice that will speak in Pashto. You know, I don't know if there's something out there that will sound similar with those speech.
Yeah.
prosody, all the intonation, all of that.
Let's look to see what they've got at Avas. The other tool that's out there that's kind of like the modern version of the Language Master is the Logan, with the little chips, and then you could record it and then wherever they took it to. And they're also enabling devices has this recordable schedule, like they're all their like plastic calendar things that enabling has. And then there's one that as you take the image up and you stick it on it, it says the word. And as you pull it off, it says the word. And I think they call it their talking schedule. It's one of those blue plastic things that they have.
So look up blue plastic thing.
I'll find it and put a link to it. But I'm just, thinking, what else? I know that I've had kids that, when we've tried to transition them from picture exchange onto other things, what are some of the things that move and talk that we've been using? We did that with the low tech Go Talks too, is double up on the symbols and then when you take it off and then put it on. But
I'm kind of liking the Go Talks just because I know we have a ton of them, but I also like the levels and being able to keep everything within that device. So we could have, like you said, Kelly, like a schedule on there, then we could record both English and Pashto. But I'm thinking if we're getting multiple students and just the recording ability of like all these devices and something like setting up, maybe doing that short term and then start working on some sort of a cough drop sort of version where we could get some of that translated with some of the recorded speech like Alyssa's done. That might be more of a long term. We're not going to get that done in the next week, but we could start working on that as we get more students coming into the district. We had, I don't know, maybe Kelly, Cassie, or Annie, you guys remember, but we had like a huge number of Afghan refugees that came to Fort McCoy in Wisconsin. And so I think they could be dispersed throughout the country, but I think we will see an influx in our areas. So getting some of this stuff figured out now might help long term as we get, more people coming in.
One thing we're doing, Jennifer, we've got a student that we've been kind of working on in an EL situation as well. And part of the thing is the student communicating, but the other part is the teachers trying to communicate with the students. One thing that we found helpful is using the, now I'm going to draw a blank. I think I was going to say it was ChoiceWorks. Now I feel like I need to look it up. Is that the calendar one?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we were using the ChoiceWorks app for kind of doing like the schedules and stuff in the day of what the student needed to be doing, because we really like the video modeling part. So they could explain it in English, but they could show the video of what the teacher's asking the student to do. Really helped a lot of our teachers because I know they were really overwhelmed. Like they wanted to include the student in class and activities, but they couldn't figure out how to explain to the student what was coming next, what was the next thing they were going to be doing. So that app worked really well for us because we had the schedule, and if the student didn't know what the button meant, they could watch the video model of it. So I know it's kind of a different use for that app, but if you're going to be looking at possibly iPads with like cough dropper things, that might be another add-on for it.
Have you thought about setting up like tech books that have the symbols that you're showing both in both languages, so the student can answer a question or ask a question and the teacher can see what they're trying to say?
Yeah, we could definitely do that. Again, they're not readers, so it would be all based on the picture symbols,
Right.
for meaning.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if also thinking about staff development, if there's a way, because you've got this one person who a translator, and then you're going to have other staff that need that. If there's a way to Zoom that person in and just maybe a 15 to 20 minute session, so that it's not like that person's got to travel across the district into all the buildings where the kids are, that maybe they could work with the staff, and just do some just really 15-minute quick, here are some words, you know, and that end of it too, to get the staff up and rolling.
For teaching those symbols and those words and what they
Right.
mean. Yeah. Yeah. And I, again,
And
like,
customs. I mean, the other thing, I mean, we always think about the language first, but just the customs about being in school and work, you know, that so many cultures have different references to people in authority. I just had this discussion about with Donna McNair over in Minnesota about a student who she has that's Hmong, and just the deference that families might do, whether they agree or don't agree to what's going on. And I know Scott Morphilius has this long time story that I just, you know, can't ever get out of my head about an IEP meeting with a family who was Hmong, and they were using the high school child to translate. And so for an elementary school age student, they were doing an IEP for physical access. She had cerebral palsy, and they started talking about switches and that they were going to introduce her to switches. And the translation that the teenager did to their parents, everybody was like nodding, but then they didn't send the kid to school for 2 months, because the translation of switches was something that you get physically hit with, you know, like switch sticks that you hit people. And it actually took the school district truancy officer to figure out what was going on, why this kid wasn't coming to school as well. The family didn't want their child hit. And they kept saying, well, we don't understand. And then that word switch came out. And I remember Scott saying that he will never again talk about switches with a family with differences in languages without physically taking one with him. And so I try and keep, you know, you just never know what words, you know, and their custom of just agreeing with people in authority and then just removing their child from the situation was their answer to, well, I don't want my kid to be hit. Yeah.
And there's the whole custom too of looking someone in the eye. That's a whole nother, you think they're not paying attention to you, but it's disrespectful to look you in the eye. We have that. I stuck a link in the chat. I don't know if it'll be helpful, but when I was searching for stuff, it landed me on this Google page that might be useful, might not be, but it also talks about podcasts and bilingualism and the culture and stuff in it. So it might be useful. Who knows?
Interestingly, Pictello's on there. Cassie, I would guess that kind of being used similar to how you guys use ChoiceWorks for some of that video modeling type, you know, social story type, you know.
Well, I just know the frustration that can come in when the student's trying to do what the teacher wants them, but has no idea what the teacher is trying to ask them to do. You know, our particular students in the middle school and, you know, wants to be doing things, but, you know, the teachers are definitely overwhelmed too, because they don't have time to act out everything. And so that worked well. So yeah, anything along those lines that provides those video modeling and picture supports, I think are powerful.
Have you looked at different translator tools that the teacher could be using, and the student could be listening, and so as she speaks, it automatically translates?
Well, that's where I was hoping something like Microsoft Translator, and we had a meeting in the past where we've kind of played around with some of those tools and, you know, with this group. But yeah, I'm not sure what they've all tried. I just kind of got pulled into it randomly. So.
Because you were the person with all the answers, Jennifer.
Yeah. I don't know about that, but it's consuming a lot of my time today, that's for sure. And it's tricky because these are not special ed students. So,
right.
You know, there's only so much I can do. And I do have permission to let them try some different things that we have access to. And our EL department's great. And I think, you know, whatever we would come up with and recommend, I think they would purchase and fund. But it's just kind of we're at that brainstorming stage of things of what's really truly going to help these Afghan students and their families to acclimate, I guess, a little bit. Thank you, everybody. If you think of anything else, throw it in the chat.
Anybody else with new issues or good happenings or questions in your place?
I have a question, and some of you may not be able to think of this, but I remember I'm the over 21 person here. I have a individual who we got him a new case because his case was falling apart and somewhat childish. So we aged him up because he is 28. But he is now bending his iPad. Any solution, thoughts, ideas? And evidently this is not uncommon in our group here. We have had
What
people
case do you have
snap
now?
them in half. It's not an OtterBox. It's I don't remember off the top of my head. It's similar to this one. Well, it's not focusing on me, but you know, obviously this one is a little
So a
more
rubberized one?
kind of gumdrop with a case around it, but I thought it was sturdier than it's turning out to be.
You know who I would ask? I mean, I'm sure people will have suggestions, but I would contact Mark Larson at Marble Soft Keyboard Tech, because Mark has a collection of like 100+ cases that he uses to help mold the key guards. And he might have an idea.
Why not?
Not that he could probably sell it to you, but I mean, he might have an idea of a key guard that is fairly indestructible.
Right.
A keyboard.
Well, here's the interesting thing, because I always interact with the individual and not just their teams. You know, when we got the case and I brought it in and I was talking to him about it, and he knew his case was breaking. He had one of the attainment green things, you know, and we wanted to get him a little more up to par. Plus, it is literally falling apart. It's been on there for about 10 years now, through several iPads. And when I went to go change it out, he's like, no, he didn't want it changed out. But we kind of had no choice because it's cracking apart. So now I'm wondering if this is the response. The thing is, I hate to have his mother go back, because they're only funded, you know, through their parents and stuff, spend $100 on something when we've asked her to spend $27 on, you know, already. So I just,
although if the iPad breaks, it's going to be a lot more.
Oh yeah.
And
Absolutely.
I'm thinking too, you know, like when I think about my iPad Pro and how big it is, you're going to get more flex in a bigger screen versus like my iPhone, you're going to get less flex within that screen.
So this is a 6th generation, but still.
As small as that student can go with a device, you know, if not now, but maybe in the future, like an iPad mini might be more appropriate. You're going to get less flex in there. And I'm even wondering if you could even go to a hardware store and find some piece of metal that you could maybe slide inside the case, where you're going to get, you know, it's very rigid. You just don't want to add a lot of weight, nor do you want that to become a projectile and have that fly off and hurt someone.
That's our other part. That's our other situation too, because of course we are living in residence for a reason.
There was just on the AT Assistive Technology group on Facebook, there was somebody who had like a plexiglass sort of stand that they just posted maybe Friday or over the weekend, where the device actually fits down into the stand. And
now he's mobile and goes in the community and stuff. Great idea. But he needs to,
because we've had students where they're throwing the device, so we've had to like clamp it down to a table, or
we've screwed him to the wall. We've done all of that. But yeah, no, he's very mobile, and he's blossoming in his communication now that he has the speech therapist and my AT services, and we don't want to stop that, you know. But I'm going back to the fact and honoring his request of not changing its case. Unfortunately, his other case is beyond help, so we may have to you may just have to suck it up and get the other one.
Are there other things that he does that same thing too? Does he twist other things and break them? Or is it just iPad?
Good question. I will have to ask that tomorrow when I'm in that program. I would not be surprised. The group of individuals that he does day program with are all known for snapping iPads in half. So he has another person in there with him who has snapped like 3 in half that I just found out about. So
I just wonder if there's something alternate that he could have that he could
twist instead.
You know.
Yeah, good idea. I will inquire. Thank you.
Do they no longer make your case?
Yeah, that malware case is what is for sports.
Malware for sports.
There might be some cases that were just created for people that do things out and, you know, out in the workplace, you know, people that are in forestry services and people that, you know, that kind of whole world that we don't always tap into has their
the military
own,
ones.
You know, people that work construction that have iPads.
Perfect. Thank you so much. No, he's not frustrated with his device because it works beautifully. He's increased his social, which he is a very sociable person. You know, so things are very, very positive. I didn't catch it though when he told me no, that to honor his request of no, that's on me. You know, but the case is also falling apart because you know, it's been used. You know, it's at least 6 years old. So it needed updating for multiple reasons.
Is there any way, just as a trial, to, if that case is still available, to put it back on for even a couple of days to see if he's still doing that behavior? Because if he's not, when that case is back on, maybe we need to look for a case that's similar color, similar style, because he's telling you that that's the case he wants.
Absolutely.
It might be one of the cheapest things to do is just try putting the old one on for a day or two and see, does it change?
We sent the old one home, so I'm not sure. I have an email out to his residents to find out. We may not get an answer on that. So
I have thought of that. Have you given him the ability to maybe pick so that he takes some ownership of that? You know, maybe picking the color, picking the case. And I mean, you can kind of narrow it down to a few choices that you would think would be more rugged, and then giving him some control over this is the one that I'm choosing.
Right. Absolutely is something that I have thought of. The key here is mom does not have access to a whole lot of money. So we were trying to keep it within something she could afford easily. So now we're going to have to rethink that whole, obviously, yes, all these things have crossed my mind after, you know, I with preschool for 7 years, who thought that they would snap like that, you know, never in my wildest dreams. Thank you, everyone.
Now I'm searching cases on the internet. Thanks, Jennifer. That's a good one.
Excellent. Yeah, that's exactly. We could have a few people who could probably use that.
I was just trying to throw in and track down some of the resources I found over the weekend, just since we had such a long conversation about it for others.
Naomi, when you save the video, do you also save the chat?
I do.
Cool. Thank you. How about anybody else? Well, this will be big for us. 3 topics in an hour.
Oh, cool.
Anyone else? We could always end early and you have 14 minutes back for the rest of your day, if no one has anything else.
I have one. I think
Okay.
that, so I'm working with a student that recently started using JAWS, and basically our VI person is very new. And so I'm doing a lot of helping and supporting and researching. And a couple of struggles that we've had are math. And if the student, I know there's Nimith code too, but the student doesn't know Nimith code. And so I'm wondering if anyone has any ideas for math for a student with vision impairment. And then also Google Forms hasn't been very accessible either with JAWS, but you know, we were looking at possibly asking the teacher to give the information for the test in a doc to make it a little bit more accessible, because the Google Forms seem to be tricky. But you know, just wondering if anybody has any suggestions.
Well, I know that the hot math tool seems to be Equatio, but I have not used that with a student with a vision impairment. Now I have kids that are LD or dyslexic that are using that. So I can't speak to it for how it works for a child that's using JAWS.
I'll check that out
Yeah.
for you know, maybe for another student.
Oh, right.
Thanks.
It doesn't, you know, the early math, not so well. But once you get up into multiplication and division, like at early, and well, in addition and subtraction are fine too, but it's not going to help you do any early math concepts, right? It's more for when you're in numbers and figures.
Wondering if math share would be something that JAWS could read and would be helpful.
What is that one called?
Math share, so the
Math
same
share.
would do book share.
Did you say what did the second thing that you said, Irene? Sorry.
I'm wondering if it might work for you.
Oh, okay. Okay, thanks. And
If
is
it
it
has-
one word or two words, math share?
It's one word.
Okay.
And that takes all our knowledge in math.
Or in vision, one of the two.
Annie, have
thank
you connected with Amy Snow at the Wisconsin Center for the Blind and Visually Impaired?
You know, our new VI person, I'll have to check with her if she's connected with Amy Snow, but she's been out for a week or so, and then prior to that, I know she has a mentor through the state, but I will see if she's connected with Amy Snow. And you know, I'm trying not to take the lead, but to just help and support. So but I can let her know about Amy Snow too, if she doesn't already.
I'm not sure what screen reader Amy uses, if she uses JAWS or what, but you know, she has a lot of thoughts on a lot of things, and I love her to just tell you how like it is, and so she's a great person to touch base with. She's also a part of the Wisconsin AT Forward project, so she may be able to help support either through that or just through the Wisconsin Center for Blind and Visually Impaired.
And the Perkins Center has some stuff. I put down their link to it about
Thank
teaching
you.
math to students. who
Oh,
are
thank
visually
you.
impaired.
We did experiment a little bit with Sharky. I learned about Sharky, and JAWS is like Alexa. And so we say, you know, Sharky show links or Sharky show headings. And he didn't really like saying, hey, Sharky. So we just did the key commands, but that was pretty cool to try out. And so far it's been working pretty good for him. So
Yeah, and I mean, students that I've been a part of their teams, doing the keyboard commands is, for some students, is much more efficient than doing it by voice, especially when you're in a classroom, you know, and you've got everybody else around you. If you're constantly shouting out to your computer, it sometimes interrupts things.
Yeah, and I'd like to know a little bit more too, because Braille, this student knows Braille and can read Braille, but is resistant to Braille and isn't a fan of Braille. So we're looking and talking a little bit more about that and the future, you know.
There are some Braille teaching materials that support both the student and non-Braille savvy staff out of Region 4 in Texas. I think it's ESC4. I'll have to check. ESC4.edu. What's the woman's name at the School for the Blind in Texas? Cecilia. I'll find it for you, Annie, and send it to you.
Thank you.
She's really helpful. She used to be at Region 4 and now she's at the School for the Blind in Austin.
Perfect. The student's really bright, lacks a little bit of motivation, and hasn't had a whole lot of access when the student was at a district in, I don't know, in a southern state, but the student is a 9th grader. So we're just moving forward, you know. Well, thanks for all your ideas, everyone.
Her name is Cecilia Robinson. There's her, that's the first link I found for her.
And that's the Region C or ESC4, that one?
ESC4 is where you'll find products, and Cecilia used to work there, but now
Okay.
she works at the School for the Blind. But if I find another link for her, I'll send it to you.
Thanks.
Anyone else?
This is actually back to our first thing, Jennifer's question. So while we were doing it, I wrote to Help a Bird and asked what they had for translation. And he said he does not have that, but he's adding it to the list to be added on. So they should come out with it soon.
Nice. Thank you.
Sure. Well, it's probably going to be a pretty common issue I'll be looking at in the future.
True.
We need to make almost like a research list page off of this that we can all keep adding to.
I'm sure if Alyssa were still here, she would be like, I'll create a wakelet.
That's okay. Let's assign Alyssa a wakelet.
You may already have one started.
Yeah.
I actually feel like we're all gonna leave like this meeting with like a list of things we want to search and research now, because we all have like we're almost there. There's almost an
Yeah.
answer.
This is really, I mean, lots of meat in this meeting.
And I've taken to keeping everything in a notebook so I don't lose it. You know, when that can't come apart, I'm constantly going back through it. Interesting. And the Afghani refugee problem isn't going away. I mean, it's going to increase for all of us everywhere. So maybe if we can get ahead of it, we can help some others. Because I'm near Fort Dix, where a bunch of them were transferred from Philadelphia Airport to Fort Dix for a while. So I know they're coming.
And maybe I'll be able to provide an update in the next few weeks or maybe after the holidays and just share some of what we've been doing in the district, because I'm sure it'll just ramp up.
I see a future webinar
I was gonna say,
for
yeah,
you.
where will you be presenting?
No comment.
No, but it's good to start thinking about this before it happens, you know? Probably be good to contact our ELL English learners program now before they're asking for it.
They'll be impressed.
And that's my goal in life. This was fabulous. Thank you, everyone. It's great to have such a robust team.
And I think we did it. It's 3 minutes to 1.
All right.
Do we
See you
call
all
it a
next
wrap?
week.
See ya. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good week,
Have a
everybody.
great week. Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.